The air was thick with the weight of loss as the sun dipped behind the distant hills of Zaria. Adanna stood at the edge of the village, her eyes gazing out toward the forest that stretched endlessly before her. The forest held secrets, whispers of the dead, and the shadows of memories too painful to bear. Amaka looked up at her mother, clutching the edge of her shawl. "Mother, will we ever see them again?" Her voice was barely a whisper, trembling with the innocence of a child too young to understand the finality of death. Adanna did not answer immediately. She stared into the darkening horizon, where the last rays of sunlight battled against the encroaching night. Her heart ached, the memories of Obina, Chinelo, and Chizoba swirling in her mind like the relentless winds of a storm. "We must keep moving," she finally said, her voice firm despite the tears she refused to shed. Kene tugged at her other hand, his eyes wide with fear. "But where will we go, Mama?" Adanna knelt down, pulling both Amaka and Kene close. "We will find a place where the sun still shines, where the earth is kind, and where the spirits do not haunt our every step." She forced a smile, though it did not reach her eyes. "We will find a new home." As they began their journey into the unknown, the forest seemed to close in around them, its ancient trees towering like silent sentinels. The path was narrow, winding through the dense undergrowth, and the sounds of the night creatures echoed eerily in the stillness. "Stay close to me," Adanna warned, glancing at Amaka and Kane. "The forest is not what it seems. It has eyes that watch and ears that listen." Amaka shivered, clutching her mother's shawl tighter. "What do you mean, Mama?" Adanna hesitated, her mind racing with the stories she had heard as a child, tales of spirits that roamed the woods, of ancient gods who demanded sacrifices, and of lost souls who wandered forever, never finding peace. "It is just the wind," she said finally, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Just the wind." But Amaka was not convinced. She glanced over her shoulder, half expecting to see a shadow darting between the trees. "It doesn't sound like the wind," she murmured. As they walked deeper into the forest, the light of the moon began to filter through the canopy, casting eerie shadows on the ground. The path became steeper, and Adanna had to help Kin over the rough terrain. "How much longer, Mama?" Kin asked, his voice tinged with exhaustion. "We are close," Adanna replied, though she knew not where they were going. The truth was, she had no plan. She was following instinct, the same instinct that had driven her to flee the village after the tragedy that had befallen them. Suddenly the path opened into a small clearing, and Adanna stopped, her breath catching in her throat. Before them stood a small hut, ancient and covered in vines, as if the forest itself had tried to reclaim it. The door was slightly ajar, swaying gently in the breeze. "Who lives here, Mama?" Amaka asked, her voice a mixture of awe and fear. "I do not know," Adanna replied, stepping cautiously forward. She peered inside, her heart pounding in her chest. The hut was empty, its interior dark and cold, with only the faintest hint of a fire having once been lit. "Let's rest here for the night," Adanna decided, guiding her children inside. "We will be safe here." As they settled down for the night, Adanna couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone. The air was thick with an unseen presence, and she found herself listening intently to every creak and groan of the old hut. In the darkness, Amaka whispered, "Mama, do you think they are watching us?" Adanna did not answer. She pulled her children close, feeling the warmth of their small bodies against hers. "We are together," she said softly. "That is all that matters." But as the night wore on, the shadows grew longer, and the whispers of the forest grew louder. Adanna lay awake, her eyes wide open, staring into the darkness. There was something out there, something that watched and waited. And as the first light of dawn began to break through the trees, she knew that their journey was far from over. What happens next? Watch out for part 2.